Hi there, I'm Chad Trofgruben. This video is part of a larger course on rigging and animating characters in Adobe Character Animator. Use the playlist to navigate the sections as they're uploaded. This course was recorded in 2018 and originally ran on Udemy, where it received strong reviews. I'm archiving it here because the material is still useful. If you want the course files, check the link below. You'll also find a link to the updated version with more current information. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something.
For this video, I'm working off of 14 Chad Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file if you wish to follow along. I'm now going to talk about universal behaviors. So up to this point, we've set up our character, we've applied tags, and we've applied certain handles to different areas of the character. There are parameters you can control while animating that allow you to alter how all this works. You can do this with individual layers as well, which will override the universal animation settings that you apply within the Record tab. But we'll talk about that in the next video. For now, we're just going to focus on universal behaviors. So to access these, we first need to go over here to the Record panel. Now, once in Record, you're going to want to click on your character on the timeline. You'll see the timeline right down here, and we have our puppet right here. Click once, and on the right, where your properties are, you'll gain access to all of the behaviors for this puppet. And behaviors will automatically come on depending on what you have going on. As an example, if we did not apply any dragger handles, you wouldn't see dragger here. There'd be no reason for it. Same goes for lip sync or physics or anything that we have assigned. We can, of course, manipulate here. There are some behaviors that need to be manually added once you set up your rig a certain way, and we'll cover that in some later videos. So for instance, let's start with the dragger. If I come in, you have the ability to turn it off completely. So right now, if I come in and click and drag, I can drag things around. But if I disable it, you can see if I come in and try to click and drag, I just can't do it. The other thing about this is you can change these parameters on the fly. So let's say 5 seconds into the animation, you suddenly no longer want the ability to control the arms with the dragger. You can turn it off and it will turn off in that part of the animation. Now, the other thing we can do is just turn that back on. Let's say, as we move the arm, we really don't like that it just stays in midair after you move it. Well, you'll see right down here, after move is set to hold in place. So it's doing it for that reason. If we click on this, we can return to rest on to have it actually animate back to its default position. So if we come over here and move this, you can see that it quickly drops back to the side. Now, you can change how long it takes for this to happen. You can see right now it's set to 0.2 seconds. But if I changed it to, let's say, 3 seconds, and then we click and drag and move this up, you can see it takes 3 seconds for it to return to its position. So you can do all sorts of things like that if you wish. So I'm just going to come in and put this to 0.5. Seems about right. And I'll keep it at return to rest. So whenever we do this, it'll just kind of go back to default. Now your eye gaze has to deal with how the eyes are being controlled. So here we have the camera input controlling the eyes by default. And I demonstrated that a little bit, but let's turn that off and let's turn on mouse and touch input. So now if I come around here and I click, you can see he's going to look where I click, or at least in the general direction of where I click, which is, again, interesting and useful. It just depends on how you want to animate out your eye gaze. You can also do keyboard input. So if you wanted him to go based on your arrow keys, which is what I'm using right now, you can see that I'm doing that. You just push the arrow key and he'll look in the direction you want him to look. You have smoothing as well as camera strength, and then the strength of the mouse, touch, and keyboard. And these all work the same. It just depends on how you want to control your character. So let me turn my camera on once again. And I'm just going to set the rest pose. Now, if I come down here, I'm going to look at first the camera input, make sure I turn that on. And I'm just going to set the rest pose again. Now, if I come down here, and you can see right now how my eyes are reacting when I move my pupils around. If I increase the strength of this, you can see that they're going completely out of bounds. And the same, or the opposite, I should say, occurs when you scale it back. So if you don't want the eyes to move as far as they are, you can rein that in and make it more subtle. Now, it'll go based on the boundaries of your eyeballs. So if you have it 100%, the boundary will be the eyeballs, or at least it should be. But if you want more control, if you need more movement, you can definitely turn that on or off or increase it. Now, you also have snap eye gaze down here as well. So let me just turn the camera off here for a moment. And I'm just going to do that. Let me turn on mouse and touch input again. You can see how it's sort of snapping back and forth. And you could come in here and change that duration. So when I click, he looks for 0.5 seconds and then looks back. So if I go to, let's say 0.2, you see it's really quick. He just boom, boom, looks back and forth. So you can go in and adjust those parameters right there. Your face has to deal with the camera input mostly, so let me turn that back on. Now, as you can see, I'm moving my head back and forth just by tilting as I am. But if I come down here, and let's increase the head position strength to like 200%, you can see, hopefully it's easy to tell, that it's much more forgiving. I can really move it around. And if I put it back to 0, it's much less forgiving. I can't even really move it up or down. So you can go in and adjust just how much you want that to be affected. The head's scale is also the same. For instance, if I increase this, if I go towards the camera, you can see it increases the scale of the head. And if I go back, we go back out. Just like that. And we can come down here and adjust the head tilt strength. So again, if you really want it to be really tilty, you can go in and do all that. And your eyebrow strength is the same. So if you really want those eyebrows to be exaggerated, you can do that. If you want them less exaggerated. And we can do eyelid strength as well, which I'll get to in a separate section. I'll cover eyelids in its own little section. But all of that can be controlled here, as you can see. And on the bottom, you can even choose if you want your eyes to blink together. You can see I'm blinking my eyes right now. But if we come in here, we can turn it so that you can do one at a time. Or at least you should be able to. There we go. So you can do all of that very easily. Also keep in mind, as you make these changes, you can come in here and click on these X's to reset your parameters, just in case you decide that you don't want those changes. Down here you have lip sync. You can look at those options. Basically, it's just going to track your audio input. As long as you have your microphone on, that's really the only way you can automatically lip sync this way. And then you have your physics, which deal with your draggers, and you can come down here. We can turn these on so we can adjust them first and foremost, so you can see that's on. And then let's just adjust, for instance, the wind strength. You can see as I do that, it's like really blowing it out. We can increase the variation of the wind. We can adjust the direction going that way, this way. The gravity. I mean, there's so many little things you can adjust. The dangle stiffness. So if you really want it to be really, really bouncy, you can just really play with these settings and blow them out if you want. And you also have some other things down here as well, such as collision, when triggered, when should it start, and the weight. You have all that you can adjust here as well. So there's a lot you can adjust with those physics. And again, I could go through every single one, but I feel like once you kind of get the feel for it, you'll understand how it all works. And the last thing we have down here are the transform properties and the triggers. I'll get the triggers in its own little video. For the transform properties, just know that you can come in and you can move the character, you can scale the character, and you can rotate and do opacity settings. And this is also where you could animate the character moving across the screen and different things like that. So that's a little bit about how you can adjust universal behaviors inside of Character Animator. Up next, we're going to look at specific layer behaviors which override these behaviors but give you more control. For this video, I'm working off of 15 CAD Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file if you want the reference. I'm now going to go over how to apply individual layer behaviors, and these will override the universal behaviors we just worked with. So, as an example, let's say we want the wind to be affecting the hair like we were doing in the previous video, but we want the wind to be less impactful on certain parts of these layers. We want the wind to really impact the front, but not so much the back. Or you want it to go in a different direction. Or really anything pertaining to individual layer properties. That's what this is all about. So let's first click on the front hair. And I'm just going to scroll down here to the bottom. You'll see right on the bottom is behaviors. If I click on this, it's going to give us access to a list of behaviors, and there's quite a few to choose from. Now, in our case, we just want to work with the dangle properties for the hair. So you'll want to go in and locate dangle, or in this case, physics. So go ahead and click on physics. Now, you'll see at the bottom here, we have access to the physics controls that we had in the previous video. If I click dangle on the bottom here, it's going to show me how many dangle handles I currently have on this layer. And that's useful because it tells me what's being affected. The other dangle handles are not being affected on those other hair layers, just this one. So I could come in here and I could increase the wind strength, let's say. And I'm just going to do some very quick settings here. I probably would never use these settings ever, but I'm just trying to give you a visual example here. Actually, let's just come in and type out. I'll do 56, and we will put the direction back like that. And we could even do gravity strength, something different. Okay, so you have that. Again, I'm just doing some different things. Then you can come over here to your back hair, and we could do something else. So we could come in to the back hair, add some physics, come down here, and we could really just play with this in a different way. So the wind strength could be minimal compared to where it was before. The direction is different. The gravity is even different. And the stiffness is higher. And then your back hair, the second back hair layer could, of course, contain different physics altogether. And we could come in here and modify that. When I go to the Record tab, you'll see that the physics are updating and affecting my layers. Now, a couple more things. Once you do something like this, if we were to come down to the universal behavior for this puppet and locate physics and start to play around with the physics, like adjusting the wind strength, you'll see it's actually not doing anything. And that's because these layer-specific behaviors are overriding anything that the universal physics behavior will do. But you also have the ability, if you keep scrolling down, to come down here and access these layer-specific behaviors. So this allows you to watch the animation in real time as you make changes. You can do it all in the rig panel, but as you were probably seeing as I was updating the physics, we couldn't tell what it was doing until we got to record. So here I could come in and I could start to modify this, and you can see I'm adjusting this part of the hair. I could come down and adjust this hair right here. Just come in and make those changes and, do whatever it is that you want to do with this. But that way you have a lot of control and you can create really complex rigs just by applying behaviors to the layers. For this video, I'm working off of 16 CAD Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. What I want to do is once again update my PSD file. That way, you guys can follow along with what I'm doing. And just to show you what I did between videos, if we come back here, you're going to see we have 17 chatwithphone.psd. And all I did was come in and I went to tunefiles.com and pulled up just some quick free assets here. I just added a quick pair of glasses and I added a phone to his hand. And if we go to the layers, you'll see back arm has the phone within that back arm group. And if we come up here to the head, you'll see glasses is the first layer on the head. So coming back here to Character Animator, this is also a good opportunity to show you how this all works when you're updating your files. So basically we want to come in and update this rig to include these new props. If we come down here and click on the Show Mesh option, and we can also show the outline, we can come in here and see what each of these are doing. If I click on Chad, you'll see what it is tracking based on what I have going on. Now you'll notice that the arms are not being tracked because they are independent. So if you come down here to the body and you were to click on front arm, you'll find now that it has its own mesh. And by looking at this mesh, we can see how it's all performing. We can see that everything is being accounted for. Now, there might be some exceptions here, though, because if we zoom in, you'll see because we have this set up a certain way, it's only tracking one of the hands. I'm not sure if front arm's doing that as well, and it is. You can see it right there. And so if you get a little bit of distortion with that, for instance, if you move the hand or the arm and you're noticing there's some sort of cutoff or a warping effect with the fingers, you can always come in here and expand the mesh. So whenever you click on your front arm or any independent layer, you'll be able to come in here and see the mesh. And then using the layer expansion, you could come in here and kick that up just a little bit if you wanted to. And you'll see now, once we do that, it will cover the hand. Now, you don't want to do this a whole lot, because if you really blow out the mesh, then you won't be able to get the same movement you had when it was tighter around the assets. But a little bit should be okay. And again, only if you're seeing issues. Now, what I want to do here is come in and incorporate this new PSD file. So just to demonstrate how this all works, let's click on back arm, and you can see the mask for this. I want to come over here now to my puppet, and then we're going to click on the puppet source, and then you can download 17 Chat with Phone, which is the one I just saved, and you can double click on that to replace the file, or you can update your own file and save the phone to the hand. But as this replaces the file, you're going to see the mask update in real time as well. You can now see the mask is covering the phone along with all the hand poses. So that is useful and it can be helpful. And you can always come in and reestablish your mask by going to Auto. You can also come in and choose between two other options, Rectangle and Contour. So if you're having issues with the mask, you can come in and play with that as well as the expansion. Just remember, when it comes to working with meshes, your independent layers work on their own system. So just one more time to demonstrate this, let me come up here to where my eyebrows and such are. You'll see that those are independent. And if I click on one of these, we can see the mesh. And this incorporates all of the poses, so that way everything is tracked. For this video, I'm working off of 17 Chad Character Animator. Feel free to open up this file. In the previous video, I updated this file to include a rig with glasses and a phone. We're now going to set that up further by creating triggers. Let's say, as an example, we don't want the glasses or the phone to be visible at all times. We only want them to come into play at certain points within the animation. You can trigger them with your keyboard so they can stay hidden or visible for a certain duration, and then all you have to do is perform an action to make it go away or reappear. So to set this up, we first want to locate the objects that we want to trigger. We'll start with the glasses. Under my layers, you'll find glasses under head. And if I right click on this, you'll see I have the ability to create a trigger. So just come down and choose Create Trigger. Here, you'll see now that we have the trigger established. And it's labeled as glasses because that's the layer that we're going to work with. And here, you can work with multiple triggers. The Triggers panel allows you to just come in and alter and change just what these things do. In order to set up a trigger, you need to pick a key on the keyboard you want to assign. Since these are glasses, I'm going to come over here to the left panel and click, and then enter in G, and then click off. And we have now established that glasses will be controlled by the G key. Now, if I click on glasses, you'll see I have some options underneath as well. First, you can hook up a MIDI device if you wish to control your actions this way. I honestly don't know much about that, but if you do, I'm hoping you'll understand that you can perform those actions here and set that up. But you also have the ability to come in and choose to latch, which essentially means you don't have to hold down the keyboard key in order to keep the glasses in or out of frame. And then there's default, which pertains to swap sets, which I'll get into in the next video. And then finally, you can set up your trigger for multiple assets, and it will show you what this trigger is controlling right now. And it's only controlling our glasses, but if we wanted to have the hair, as an example, be controlled by G, we could as well. But first, let's just test this out. Since G is established for glasses, I can come up here to my scene and double click. So here we are, we're looking at the rig in the record panel, and there's no glasses. But if we hit G, you'll see that they reappear. And I don't have it set to latch, so I have to hold it in order for those glasses to stay. But you can see, since it's attached to the head, that everything is working out with that. Now I noticed that my arm is actually detached. My back arm is detached from the body. Let me just come back here to rig. And that happens sometimes when we update these different assets. In the previous video, I updated this PSD file. And it's not a big deal. I'm just going to come back here since I noticed it. And it's also sort of a good opportunity to show you how this all can work. And I'm just going to click and drag and reattach it to the body. So that way it's there and there's no issues. So anyway, coming back here to the rig with the glasses, we can come down here now and choose to latch it if we wish. And we could also put in another trigger for the phone. So I could come in here, click on phone, and you can right click if you want to create another trigger, or you can click and drag and just bring it over here to this panel and it'll drop it right in and you can establish your next trigger. So in this case, I can enter P for phone, click off. We now have that trigger. I can click on and then let's just choose to latch that as well. So now I can come back here to the scene and double click and it's going to update really quick. And you can see that those assets are gone. Looks like my arm is hopefully working a little bit better. Yep, it's now attached. The position seems a little bit off still, but again, I can just move it over a little bit. I just moved the origin point before. And then you have the ability to hit P to bring the phone in right there. And then you have G for glasses, and you can trigger those on and off at any time. And that is a little bit on triggers. Up next, we're going to cover swap sets, which build upon the concept of triggers. For this video, I'm working off of 18 CAD Character Animator. And here, we're going to focus on creating swap sets. Swap sets are basically more complicated triggers that involve multiple assets that you can swap whenever you want. And this is ideal for certain poses, such as hand poses, or maybe you have different facial expressions, or really anything that you want to switch with the press of a key is complemented using a swap set. We're going to go with the hands for this option. So I'm going to start by locating my front arm, dropping that down, and here we have the front hands folder. Underneath, we have 3 different hand poses, and I'll reveal those. So when we reveal them, we have them all exposed, and we don't want that. We just want to be able to swap them. So I can right-click on front hands, and since we're in a group looking at multiple layers, we now have new options we didn't have before, particularly create swap set. So if you come down here, you can choose to create a swap set. Also, something to note from the previous video, you can also add this to a trigger. And you'll recall that we have 2 triggers already active. So if you wanted to keep adding assets to a trigger, this is how you could do it as well. But for now, we're just going to come up here to create swap set. Now, it'll come over here to your triggers panel, and you're going to see we have those 2 other standalone triggers we created ready to go. What I want to do then is come in, and you can see we have fist, point, and relaxed, just like we do in the layers. The thing you want to do first is establish a default position. And you can see it picks one for us already. Default essentially means this is going to be the one that's always exposed. So let's go ahead and go with relaxed and then click on default, because that seems to be the most logical default position for us. Then we can come in and start choosing how we want to invoke these different poses. Since we're going with hand poses here, I'm just going to keep it simple, and we'll go with 1, 2, and 3. Also, depending on how you want to control these, you can use your MIDI device, but also we can choose Latch, and I'm going to put Latch on for all of these as well. There you go. So now we're going to come over here and double click on Scene to test this out. There we are. Now, all I'm going to do, you can first see that even though I had all those hand poses visible, only relaxed is now visible. And if I were to come in now and just hit 1, you can see it changes to the fist. If I hit 1 again, it's going to default back to relaxed. I could also hit 3 to go to relax as well. And 2 will bring up point. So if you're animating out, at one point you could be like, what are you doing? And you could bring up the hand. And then once they're done, hit 3 and bring it down to relaxed. And of course, we'll get into animation here in a little bit. But that really does serve a purpose, and it's awesome. So what we could do then is come back here to the rig, and we could put in the backhand poses on this swap if we wanted to, but it's probably best to control them separately. So that way you could have one hand point, the other one be a fist, whatever you want. I'm just going to quickly come down here to back hands, right click, choose create swap set. And then we will have default to relaxed. We can come in here and we'll just do 4, 5, and 6 for that. And that way they can be controlled separately. And once again, we'll just come back here to test it. And I can go 1 with that and bring this up. And you can see if I go, and you can see if I use 5, 6, I have to hold it in. I didn't use Latch, but 5 or 6 or 4, you can see I can go in and change that as well. So that is really cool, and again, gives you a lot of control and really streamlines a lot of the animation process.
You made it to the end. That's awesome. I hope you had fun and learned something. If you want to learn more, or perhaps you jumped into the middle and need to backtrack to previous lessons, you can always check out the playlist for this course. Also, if you need help and want to go further, the course files are always available on Udemy. Plus, we have the updated version of this course available on there as well. All of that is detailed in the description box below. Thanks for watching.